but by our deeds, not by our rhetoric, but by our actions, not by our promise, but by reality. And today is part of an extraordinary story that's being written by this administration and our brave allies in the Congress. This law that I'm about to sign finally delivers on a promise that Washington has made for decades to the American people.
Folks, there's a ton of information about the fourth stimulus check that I want you guys to know. Here it is. Starting right now, millions of people could feel the effects of a recession in just a few weeks. The economists warned that Social Security changes are on the way, and if the United States does default in its debt, many important relief programs are going to be paused. Now, the U.S. officially hit its $30 trillion debt ceiling on January 19th. It launched a ticking time bomb toward a potentially awful debt default. And with them being able to break the deadlock, the Treasury would now take extreme measures to ensure the government can pay its bills. Because according to Jenny Yellen, the Treasury emergency measures are due to expire on June 5th. But there are several ways this could affect you. The Council of Economic Advisors in the agency advised Joe Biden to make an economic policy, and it has painted a grim picture of life after debt default. Many have said that the average American debt could feel the impact, and the Council of Economic Advisors have stated that payments from the federal government that families rely on to make ends meet would be endangered. The basic functions of the federal government, including maintaining the national defense, national parks, and countless of others, would be at risk. The public health system, which has already enabled the country to react to a global crisis, would be unable to adequately function. It means that the government could delay various paychecks, and like the Social Security payments, they could be delayed as well. Now, history has a tendency of repeating itself, everybody, and does not bode well for Americans' 11th hour debt ceiling decision. In 2011, Congress already approved a debt ceiling extension, with just a few hours to spare. In the coming months of extraordinary measure look set for a long, drawn-out political wrestling match, with opposing Republicans using their votes on an extension as leverage to seek the spending cuts. Credit card interest rates, as well as other interest rates, are like mortgages and auto loans, are tied to the health of the economy, which is facing dire straits of its default in debacle. Now, the Federal Reserve has raised its key short interest rate by a couple percentage points. Plus, the Republicans have repeatedly warned that they will be able to raise the limit debt ceiling hostage until Democrats negotiate changes to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. These three programs altogether are funding the Affordable Care Act, the Child Health Insurance Program, and account for nearly half the federal budget. In 2010, the Republicans turned the tables, using what they called the Medicare cuts in the Affordable Care Act. Now, those cuts were actually mostly reductions in payments to providers, and the beneficiaries actually got extra benefits through the Affordable Care Act. The reality is that the Medicare's value as a political value weapon is sabotaged as an effort to come together in a bipartisan way. The last two times Medicare Care Hospital Insurance Trust Fund was this close to insolvency was in the 80s and 90s. Back then too, Congress passed bipartisan bills. And now reducing payments to medical providers may reduce premiums for beneficiaries, which is not always good.
Let me close with this. We made incredible progress on the economy from where we were a year and a half ago. We got a long way to go because of inflation, because of I call it the Putin tax increase. Putin because of gasoline and all that grain he's keeping from being able to get to the market. Now I'm fighting like hell to lower costs on things that you talk about around your kitchen table. My dad used to say, at the end of the day, it's just when you sit at that table, do you have enough money to pay for everything you need? Not a lot over, do you have enough money to pay for everything you need? Well, Republicans do nothing to obstruct our efforts to lower your gas taxes. I propose that. I've asked the Congress to eliminate the federal gas tax for the next, as long as this crisis goes on. Lower food prices, lower health care costs. Hopefully soon, lower your prescription drug costs. By the way, you got a Republican leader in the United States Senate. I was able to work out something with Intel. They're going to provide for over 7,000 jobs in this state out of Columbus. Making computer chips. Well, there's another bill that if we...
For much of the year, Manchin played a huge role for the party's climate, healthcare, and tax agenda. Last month, he lent his approval pivotal support to the Inflation Reduction Act, the centerpiece of Democrats' economic plans, that he authored in secret with Chuck Schumer. It would pass in Republican votes, but unlike that expensive measure, he had no way in Biden's design of the student loan relief program. Manchin's view was not entirely unique to his party. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, who is up for re-election in November, said in a statement that following Biden's announcement, he wished Biden had further targeted the relief and proposed a way to pay for his plan. Bennett added, while immediate relief to families is important, one-time debt cancellation does not solve the underlying problem. While many Republicans continue to slam the relief, sign the cost it could have to taxpayers and the economy, the leading voices on loan forgiveness like Chuck Schumer have vowed to continue pushing for up to $50,000 rent relief. Even after that, President Biden's administration said on multiple occasions, this is a one-time blanket loan forgiveness. Schumer thanked Biden for taking action on student debt relief and criticized Republicans for what he called fake outrage on the decision. On the issue, information has been released on the fourth round of stimulus checks from President Biden's administration. Democrats and Republicans are discussing whether all Americans should receive extra financial assistance. Some states and cities have already approved new gas relief checks to help offset the rising prices. Right now, a large number of companies and institutions are finding ways to help Americans cope with inflation by doing out and doling out employee bonuses or by offering more promotions than usual. In July, consumer prices jumped 8.5% compared to a year earlier, down from June when prices popped 9.1%. And while Americans got some relief last month with inflation slipping lightly, it's still slightly around its 40-year high. The Bureau of Labor Statistics releases the August inflation report this coming Tuesday. And now, to help with the rising prices, Domino's announced an inflation relief deal. Customers will get 20% off all menu-priced items ordered online for a limited time. According to the pizza chain, this applies to stores nationwide. The move was similar to Krispy Kreme's promotion back in April when the donut maker offered customers a discount on its sweet treats to offset the pain at the pump. The company sold a dozen original glazed donuts for the price of a gallon of gas. Aside from the product discounts, some employees are also getting extra cash in order to combat this painfully high price. The Lowe's CEO told analysts early this month that the company is giving out bonuses to hourly frontline associates in recognition of some of the cost pressures that they are facing due to inflation. Lawmakers in Newsom have already finally a deal. Gavin Newsom has finalized a deal to send $9.5 billion back to Californians feeling the crush of $6 gas and rising cost of groceries and other products and services. The payments, which could be as much as $1,000, also are coming from Governor Gavin Newsom. The Franchise Tax Board will not start the process until October because the agency is already dealing with tax. New relief is here. There is a new payment schedule for the fourth round of checks.
It's always good to be in the House of Labor. I want to thank you all for the work you do every day that inspires us. And Secretary Walsh, thank you. You are a great partner in this effort and a great leader in our administration. So good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, I just want to say a word about the jobs report that came out today. I think we all know that it really shows that Americans are getting back to work. And what we are seeing is that it is happening at a record-setting pace. As a result of the diligent